Hello, Biol-50. Here we are today on organ systems of the body. So the organ systems of the body are things that operate in conjunction with one another to ensure that the body maintains homeostasis. And remember that homeostasis is that happy, healthy, what we would probably call normal functioning of the body so that you are basically doing everything that you need to do and surviving. So in terms of body systems, let's get going here. Okay, the easiest way that I've found to remember all the organ systems of the body is to use a little anagram that's mind curlers, MINDCURLERS. Remember that each one of these letters is going to basically remind you of the name of each organ system of the body. And remember that each organ system has multiple components to it, which we'll be getting to throughout the semester. So M would be muscular, I would be integumentary, N is the nervous system, D is the digestive system, C is the cardiovascular system, U is the urinary system, R is the respiratory system, L is lymphatic and immune. They kind of go together. E is endocrine, R is reproductive, and that's both the male and female. We say subdivisions. They are subdivisions, but basically you'd say male or female individuals. And S for skeletal system. So let's just go through the basics of each system. So the muscular system is basically involved in movement. Muscles contract, all right? They contract and they relax. The difference in our muscles are going to be whether or not they're voluntary or what we call involuntary. Voluntary muscle would all be considered skeletal muscle, and that's what you're looking at here in this picture of our muscle man, okay? This is a muscle, the muscles of our face, the muscles in our legs, and so forth. The red parts or the pink parts are the muscles. Skeletal muscle is all voluntary muscle. These muscles we are able to contract when we want to move. Involuntary muscles are the muscles inside of your body. These are going to be like cardiac muscle. You should only find that in the heart. Cardiac muscle is only in the heart. And then smooth muscle. Smooth muscle looks different from skeletal muscle, and we'll see that when we get to the muscle system chapter. Smooth muscle lines the hollow organs of the body, like blood vessels, reproductive tract, digestive tract. And again, those muscles also contract. They just look a little different at the cellular level. Muscular system basically helps us move or move things around, maintains posture, an upright stance, allows us to move in a coordinated fashion and not fall over, basically, while we're standing or sitting. Muscles also intended to generate heat. Have you ever noticed when you get cold, you shiver? That's to generate heat to keep our organs and our systems operating properly at the right temperature. And so basically what we're looking at here is a system where you have movement, voluntary movement, muscles attached to bones, moving those bones around so that we can, walk, run, skip, jump, lay down even sometimes. And then smooth muscles moving stuff through the body. And then the heart, of course, moving blood through the body. Muscles, and we should say skeletal muscles, are attached to bones via tendons. We'll talk about that later in more detail. The tendons are connective tissue, but these little wide areas here are going to be tendons that you find in the body. The integumentary system. The integumentary system is the largest system of the body. It includes your skin, your hair, nails, sweat glands, oil glands, which we'll look at in a little bit. Basically, they protect the tissues underneath or inside your body from infection via bacteria. They protect from chemicals. They protect from mechanical injury, which would be things like getting scraped. And also, our integumentary system helps protect our body from UV irradiation from the sun. Basically, our muscles don't get cooked by strong sun. Other functions that the integumentary system does is it helps keep us warm and it helps keep us cool. through maintaining levels of basically sweating. The skin also makes or synthesizes very important chemicals or vitamins. Vitamin D is made by the skin in response to UV exposure. So wearing lots and lots of sunscreen actually decreases the amount of vitamin D our body makes, that our skin makes. And if we don't have adequate vitamin D, our body's not able to absorb calcium well. And finally, the integumentary system is a really, really sophisticated sense organ. What does that mean? It allows us to feel pressure, temperature, hot, cold, right? It allows us to feel really small movements. Have you ever felt a mosquito on your arm? It's kind of crazy, right? Anyways, so our body, our skin, our integumentary system is a really sophisticated sense organ. And so basically, our integumentary system minus underlying fat makes up 16% of our total body weight. That's it's a good amount. Now, the nervous system is your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. The central nervous system, okay, the CNS, is the brain and the spinal cord together. The peripheral nervous system, the PNS, are the nerves that radiate outside of the spinal cord. We will go into more detail on this later, but basically the whole purpose of the central nervous system and peripheral is communication between the body and the brain, and kind of recognizing sensations from the outside world, seeing things, hearing things. That's a part of our sensations. And the brain works to bring all that information together to kind of make estimations of the world and decide what to do about it. So let's say, for example, you're hiking up in Yosemite, right? Beautiful day, nice temperature, it smells good, you see birds and stuff, you're happy, this is great, right? You're feeling good. You have a nice sense of homeostasis. But then all of a sudden, out of the hills, out of the rocks, comes 2 cougar kittens, okay? What's that going to make your brain do? Because right behind those cougar kittens is cougar mama, and cougar mama doesn't play, right? She's going to protect her kittens. So your sensory stimuli, your visual system is going to tell your brain, oh, look, cute cougar kittens. Your brain's going to say, where's mom? At that point, you're probably going to have an autonomic response that's going to activate your skeletal muscle to get you the heck out of there, because you don't want to become a sandwich for mom and the kittens, right? Kitty sandwich, you. Anyways, coming back to the nervous system. The nervous system basically looks at the world around you, decides what to do to keep you safe and healthy. And this all happens through electrochemical signals. What are electrochemical signals? We will look at that later when we talk about the nervous system. I could go on all day about that. The electrochemical signals are called nerve impulses or action potentials. That's what I did some of my graduate work in, neuroscience. So I could go on for like a week on that. These impulses cause your muscles to move. They can also cause glands to secrete hormones, like, let's say, I don't know, you see the big cougar, all of a sudden your adrenals start making epinephrine. Epinephrine is the same thing as adrenaline, and that's going to, boom, get your heart pounding, get you out of there so you're not cougar sandwich. Okay, let's go on to the digestive system. The digestive system is what brings resources, brings food into your body, breaks it down into its building blocks for absorption to build more parts of the body and to make energy. So one of the things that hopefully you're going to remember from basic chemistry is that matter is never destroyed. Remember the first law of thermodynamics? Matter is never destroyed. It just is transitioned from one state to another. Okay, you can lose energy within a system, but the energy is never destroyed either. So what happens when you eat, I don't know, an apple? The energy from the apple goes into your body and is broken down. The sugars go to run your metabolic systems, right? The sugars go to make ATP. But then some of those carbohydrates get stored maybe. Apples don't have a lot of protein in them. They don't have a lot of fat either. Maybe we should talk about an In-N-Out burger. That would be better. You have lots of protein in that and lots of fat. The fat and the proteins can get turned into some of your skeletal muscle. the fat can get turned into hormones, right? Or it can get turned into fat if you eat too many In-N-Out burgers, especially animal style, right? So the digestive system is responsible for bringing in resources to make energy and to restore your body or build more body parts. The organs include the mouth, the pharynx. The pharynx is basically the throat, the back of the throat, back here. The stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and the anal canal, which is exit, okay? Now, those are the basic organs. The accessory organs help support what the general organs are doing. So these are the general organs, kind of the most important ones. The accessory organs, teeth, they're called accessory because you don't necessarily have to have them, but it helps to have them there to make your digestive system work and operate optimally. Teeth, salivary glands, your tongue, your liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and appendix. These are all accessory organs, and maybe the appendix not quite as important, but the liver is very important. It helps to make bile. The pancreas makes digestive enzymes. So these accessory organs, even though you don't absolutely have to have them, really help. What do they help in? The breakdown of food, all right? The absorption of nutrients and waste elimination are farther downstream in the large and small intestine. Basically, the entire tube, the stomach, the small intestine to the large intestine, is called the gastrointestinal tract or GI tract. Some people also call it the alimentary canal. And basically, that is the primary organ for absorption, digestion, and absorption of food. The appendix is an accessory organ. It is attached to the GI tract. It's not active in digestion. It doesn't really do anything. It's a rudimentary organ that's left over from evolutionarily what's believed to have been the cecum. The cecum itself, we do have a section called cecum, but in animals like rabbits and rats that eat wood, beavers, they have a cecum that can actually digest wood. We can't do that, but they can. They can digest cellulose, and the cecum is what does that. The appendix is at the base of the cecum. We don't cover this as much. We do a little bit when we get to digestive system, but this initial region of the large intestine is called the cecum, and it's attached to the veriform appendix. Cardiovascular system, everybody knows about this. There's so much conversation about the cardiovascular system, especially when you're an athlete. Conditioning your cardiovascular system, having a strong heart, having blood vessels that can take that blood out to your tissues so that you can perform optimally is really important. So the cardiovascular system includes the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood, right? Because you have to have something inside those vessels. They function to transport oxygen and gases around the body, transport hormones, nutrients, waste products, and also they function in temperature regulation. We'll talk about that in more detail when we get to the cardiovascular system. But the basic idea is blood is pumped around the system. The system is like a series of hoses that pass through the body and allow the transport of gases, nutrients, water through plasma, through our body. And basically, the main transport that we think about mostly is oxygen and CO2. But there's so much more in blood that's super important that we'll get to in another chapter. But for the time being, we'll just think about oxygen and CO2. So without oxygen, you're toast. The urinary system is what gets rid of much of the waste in our blood system. The urinary system includes the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. Do not confuse the ureters with the urethra. Ureter is inside the body. Urethra allows stuff out of the body. The kidneys operate as huge, basically, filters to clean the blood. So the blood comes in through the renal artery, and the renal arteries cycle blood around the kidneys, and we'll look at that in great detail. And as the blood is cycling around through the kidneys and the individual units called the nephrons, the blood is cleaned, it's filtered, so that clean blood leaves through the renal vein and then circulates back up to the heart. When we say clean blood, what does clean mean? It means that extra salts are being eliminated. If there's high sugar or protein in the blood, that can be eliminated. Urea is eliminated, nitrogenous waste. It's eliminated. All these wastes are eliminated with some water. The waste travels down to the urinary bladder where it's stored, and then the urine passes out the bladder through the urethra. In males, the urethra has two purposes. First of all, for urination, for waste elimination, and also for insemination of the female during reproduction. Okay, respiratory system. The respiratory system has the upper and lower respiratory components. The upper includes the nose, the pharynx, and the larynx. So we stop right here. Okay, so this is the upper. And this is the lower, everything down here. Look at that, my lovely handwriting again. The upper respiratory system consists of the nasal cavity, oral cavity, pharynx, and again, like I said, down to the larynx, the voice box. Below the larynx is the trachea, the bronchi that spread to the right and the left lungs, and then the individual lungs all the way down to the alveoli, okay? So these organs work together for ventilation to bring air in, gas exchange with the blood. These organs allow air to move in and out, up and down, what we call pressure gradients. We'll talk about that later. What else does the respiratory system do? When it's cold or it's really dry, air coming in can be warmed and humidified through the upper respiratory system. Why is that so important? Well, alveoli are very, very delicate structures deep in the lungs, all right? Excuse me. And if you inhale very dry, cold air, it's not good for the alveoli. Let's just put it that way. Also, excuse me. Speaking of cold, dry air, irritants that we inhale, like remember every now and again when there are big fires here in the Central Valley, especially in the summer of 2020, the air in Merced was just terrible. One day I remember looking outside and it actually looked yellow. The air looked yellow. You couldn't see hardly a house across the street. The air was so dense with particulate matter. These irritants would be filtered out by the mucus and the hairs inside your nasal cavity and the cilia inside of the respiratory pathway in the trachea and the pharynx. Is it perfect? No, but it's one way that our body tries to protect itself against irritants in the environment. The lymphatic system. This is a system that a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about if you talk to somebody just in class. The lymphatic system is a key part of the immune system. It includes your lymph nodes, the lymph vessels, your spleen, tonsils, and thymus. The thymus is important because it makes lots of T cells, which we'll get to later. The lymph nodes are these little green lumps here. The lymph nodes are little tiny filters that take what we call a fluid called lymph back up to the heart, all right? And we'll talk about that and how that works later. But the lymph nodes have lots of white blood cells living inside of them. So as lymph or just fluid from extracellular fluid in the tissues, we'll talk about this more later. As fluid enters the lymphatic system, it's filtered several times, usually before it gets to the thoracic duct and gets dumped back into the heart for recycling. Basically, the lymphatic system is cleaning up, another way of cleaning up the plasma in your blood, okay? And the plasma, in this particular case, would have maybe bacteria, fats. The lymphatic system transports fats throughout your body and just kind of keeps things clean. Again, we'll talk about the details of this later. Lymph is not blood, okay? Lymph itself does look kind of whitish. It contains watery fluid, which used to be plasma, right? Blood plasma escapes out into your tissues where it becomes extracellular fluid, and then it goes into a lymph, we'll get to what it's called. It's a lymph capillary, but then it turns into a kind of a whitish fluid because it has lots of lymphocytes or white blood cells floating inside of it, and there are some fatty molecules in there, and these are some good fats, so don't think that it's going to break down your circulation. Lymph is formed through that fluid surrounding the cells, like I said, that extracellular fluid, and basically the lymph that's flowing through these vessels they filter around, and then they enter that thoracic duct, which connects to larger blood vessels in the heart. And remember, the thymus is making T cells, and Early on, it can make B cells too, but that's another thing. What's the spleen doing? I didn't mention the spleen. Spleen is recycling red blood cells. We'll get into that more later. The endocrine system, oh my gosh, if you want a lot of negative feedback, and if you like negative feedback loops, this is the system for you. The organs that are included in the endocrine system are starting from the top to the bottom: hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland. Hypothalamus, the hypothalamic pituitary axis, as it's called in neuroscience or brain science, is going to be controlling as a master regulator of the body. Sets your body temperature, sets your reproductive cycles in women, also in males too. There are actually cycles in males. Sets some of your hunger cues and so forth. The pineal gland helps you go to sleep. We have the thyroid and the parathyroids regulating metabolism and calcium in your body, in your bones. The thymus, which is also going to be making cells. Don't worry about what it's doing right now. It actually regulates some of your kidney function. Adrenals, fight or flight. Pancreas, digestion. And then our ovaries or testes, you have either one or the other if you're male or female, that are going to be making sex hormones. Now, basically, the endocrine system is going to be functioning in communication and integrating processes in the body in general. The endocrine system makes long-term changes. What do I mean by long-term? The nervous system, like we said before, is involved in communication. And the nervous system uses action potentials. Action potentials are really fast. It's a super fast communication system using the brain and the nerves, okay? And of course, that makes sense because we're dealing with that hungry, lion, mountain lion who's going to come and eat you because her kittens are there. You need to get out of there fast. The endocrine system, not so fast. The endocrine system, the actions are slower. They last longer. So let's say, for example, the hypothalamus, the pituitary talk to, I don't know, let's say the ovaries in a female. That's going to be changing her reproductive cycle, and that takes usually like a month to do, 2 weeks to a month. So that's a long-lasting change in the body's operation. So the way you think about communication in the body is quick is central nervous system. Quick termination too. It's on, it's off. The endocrine system are these longer lasting changes that help maintain homeostasis again. So let's say, for example, you're under stress for a long time. The adrenals might continue pumping out epinephrine, okay, which is adrenaline. And if that keeps happening, you're not going to feel good. You'll feel tense. You're not going to have a lot of good sleep. On the other hand, if you have real quick on-off communication, hey, we need to get out of here. The mountain lion's coming. You'll be really jazzed up, but that'll go away. So the endocrine system is regulated in such a way under normal conditions that your body is able to regulate its metabolism normally, reproduction goes normally, fluid levels, electrolyte balance are normal, body pH, energy metabolism are operating optimally for the person to be able to go around and do what they do, to basically be a human animal. Reproductive system. In a male, it consists of the testes and the ducts that connect the testes to the urethra. An accessory organ is the prostate. Don't need the prostate, but it's good to have it there because it generates fluids that are important for sperm. The supporting organs are the penis, the scrotum, and together those are the genitalia. The penis and the scrotum are external genitalia. Why are they external? It's important for the male primary sperm cells, the sperm stem cells, to maintain a lower temperature than what's inside the core of the body. And so the external genitalia help keep the stem cells nice and cool, or cooler, I guess you'd say, so that there'll be enough sperm for reproductive purposes. What's the purpose of the reproductive system? Reproduction and maintenance of the species. The reproductive system is not essential for life. Every other system in the body is essential. Reproductive system is non-essential. Don't need to have it, doesn't need to work for you to survive. It only is around for maintenance of the species. The sperm that's produced travels through a bunch of genital ducts that includes the vas deferens and a couple other names that we'll get to later. The prostate and other organs add fluids to nourish the sperm cells as they exit for reproduction. The female reproductive system are the ovaries, which we also call gonads. And just so you know, in both males and females, in lower animals, they like sea urchins, it's all called gonads. So if you ever hear the word gonad, that just means reproductive organ, okay? And it could be male or female. Sometimes you don't know when you're especially looking at a sea slug. It's like, oh my gosh, what is that, male or female? Which gonad does it have? And some of them have both. Good times, right? Welcome to biology. So the accessory organs in a female are the uterus, uterine, and this should be / fallopian tubes. Both answers are correct. The fallopian tube is what I grew up studying, but a lot of books now you call them uterine tubes, and then the vagina. Other organ terms, the vulva are the external genitalia, the external folds of the entering the vagina and the reproductive tract, and then the mammary tissue, which of course nourish the offspring. Again, these are all important for reproduction and maintenance of the species, not something that you need to survive as a human though. And ova are produced by the ovaries. The ova, they're not eggs, guys, or people, I guess I should say. They're not actually eggs in human, they're called ova. And the ova are released by the ovary and they travel down the fallopian or uterine tubes where fertilization actually happens. Fertilization happens in the tubes. Then the ova could be fertilized in the uterus as well. However, a lot of fertilization happens in the uterine tubes, it's believed. And then the fertilized ova implants inside of the uterus. The uterus itself then accepts that fertilized ova, and the ova fuses with the uterus, and development of the new offspring begins. In the skeletal system, last in mind curlers, this is the system that has all of our bones in it and joints, okay? Joints or articulation, okay? So just so you know, sometimes we call these articulations, not just joints. They function to support the softer tissues of the body, move, they act as levers for movements. They also store calcium and phosphorus, okay? We think of calcium all the time, but we don't always think of phosphorus. Remember ATP, the 3 Ps on the adenine, right? Those P's, if we have extra, get stored in our bones. It's kind of cool, huh? What else does this thing do? What else does the skeletal system do? In long bones, there's red bone marrow that makes red blood cells and white blood cells. Not all bones have red marrow in it, but all the long bones do. The patella doesn't. Some flat bones, no, but some do. We'll get to that later. There are 206 bones, and that includes the bones. You're going to learn the bones. On the bones, you might have articular cartilage or ligaments. We'll get to that when we get to it. We're not going to name them in particular. Some have special names that you do need to know. But these, the cartilage, the tendons, the ligaments, and the bones all work together to support movement and support the body. It gives the body a framework. How are these integrated? We're going to talk about that for the rest of the semester. In order for the body to function properly, each system depends on the other to do its job so that the system can operate properly. So for example, flexion of a muscle for a long period of time, how does that happen? The nervous system tells the muscle to flex. The muscle system has to contract. The muscle requires oxygen. That means you have to have the respiratory and cardiovascular system working. You also need nutrients, right, for ATP. That comes from the digestive system. So the integration of body systems, you can think of like a big box. Stuff comes in like food, oxygen, water, CO2 goes out here. I was pointing with my finger. You have the digestive system, which brings water, nutrients to your skeletal system, cardiovascular. So if you look at this particular figure, you'll see how everything's connected. You have some arrows going out for waste, right? Or out for insemination, stuff coming in, and then exchanges throughout the body. This figure will help you with your lab activity this week. The integumentary system, what's a part of it? Skeletal system, what are the components of it? So you'll need this for this week. All right, folks, I hope that was a quick review. Have a great week, and we'll catch you on Chapter 6.